And we are back on Get Up. Blockbuster trade yesterday in the NBA. The Phoenix Suns finalizing a deal for all-star guard Bradley Beal. Wizards expected to receive in return Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, several second-round picks. We'll get to the bottom of the deal, including just what it means. Listen to Kendrick Perkins yesterday. He thinks the Beal trade shifts the entire power in the West.
The Phoenix Suns with this big three should be the favorite of coming out of the West and winning next year's title. Now, I don't know what's going to happen throughout the course of the offseason, and I know we just getting started, but at the end of the day, currently constructed, this is the best team in basketball.
Look who is here. The great Stephen A. Smith has made his way in. We are 31 minutes away from first take, and the great Woj is here as well. So we got like a little makeshift NBA countdown working here. Stephen A., Kendrick Perkins just said this makes the Phoenix Suns the best team in basketball. What do you say?
I say he's crazy. He's all on his own. I mean, there's no surprise there. Big Perk, love him to death, but I think he's off his rock on this one. Obviously, Bradley Beal can ball. We all understand that. When you think about it, what is it, about 27 points? 5 assists over the last 4 seasons combined. Only about 5 other players have done that. You got to give him credit where credit is due. He's got the second most points behind Rudy Gay as somebody who's done what he's done but hasn't been in a conference finals. When I look at Bradley Beal, there's no question about his talent. There's a lot of people in D.C. that are critical of him because they don't feel he closes the deal, even though he scores fourth quarter points. Numbers look right, but in key pivotal moments, they don't like what they've seen. That's them. I like his game. What I'm saying is this. Him and Devin Booker are too similar. This is not a catch-and-shoot team the way Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and those boys in Golden State were capable of being. You got guys that really, really need the ball. And so although their offense will be prolific because you got here, it's your turn, it's your turn, it's your turn, come playoff time, you need something more than that. And so I'm not as high on this. I'm not saying it's a bad deal. They've certainly upgraded. CP3, 38 years of age. We understand that, you know what, we look at Booker when he's had the ball in his hands as a point. This dude was lethal in those couple of games they won against Denver, no doubt about that. But at in the end, I look at them and I say, I got to wait and see. I'm not as sold on this big three as clearly Kendrick Perkins is.
and it brings up the whole conversation of the super team era, which I forget who it was that said it earlier this morning, but, you know, to quote Mark Twain, like the rumors of the demise of the super team seem now to have been exaggerated. There's at least one owner who's still going for it.
Yeah, and I think once Matt Ishbia, Phoenix's owner, made the Kevin Durant trade, this was the logical follow-up to it because they weren't good enough with just Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. They needed more. And also, these are 3 players who they have missed a lot of regular season games the last few years. So there may be significant windows of time where you just have 2 of these 3 players. That was the thought in Brooklyn with Kyrie Irving, James Harden, Kevin Durant. But I think for Phoenix, because of the Durant trade, which they made before the new collective bargaining agreement was agreed to, they might look back and do that differently with Mikal Bridges and all their picks. But they didn't. They went for it. And again, KD, he's approaching 35 years old. He's still playing at an incredible level. No reason to think he can't continue to do that. But they are willing in Phoenix to take on a ton of money, luxury tax. It is going to limit them in the next few years about the kind of roster building they can do, the kind of role players they have. This is a tremendous 3, and DeAndre Ayton is your 4th. But how they build out this roster, when you saw a Denver team win a championship with balance, with depth, with young developing players, they don't have draft picks to bring in the Christian Brown, who, like in Phoenix, who's young and expensive, can become a rotation guy for you.
I will say this. I mean, and I agree with Woj on all of his points. The thing that we have to pay attention to, we have to stop bringing up Kevin Durant's age. And here's the reason why we have to stop doing that. If you really, really look at his resume, he's missed about damn near 3 seasons. When you consider the ACL tear, when you consider the foot injury he had years ago when he was in Oklahoma City, he has it. I mean, I don't believe he's 35, like a legit 35 or an old 35. I think he's a younger version of 35 because he hasn't put the mileage on that most people his age on his level will have put on due to injuries in the past. Having said all of that, again, when you look at the balance that Denver put forth, when you keep your eye on this, teams who can defend but can score as well. Okay, Phoenix, are you going to stop Denver? I don't think so. But they could potentially throw a monkey wrench into what you're doing when you're giving somebody the ball and saying it's your turn, it's your turn, it's your turn. Devin Booker shot 80% over a couple of games, 60% from three-point range. Well, what the hell did he do the other 4? At least 3 of those other 4 losses. That's what you have to take into consideration. We look at Kevin Durant, one of the most efficient, proficient offensive superstars I believe this game has ever seen. How did he look in that series for the vast majority of the series? We got to take that into consideration. And so for me, I just look at it, and again, there is no denying the talent. There's no denying the fact that if you got at least 2 of the 3 guys on the court for most of the season, they're going to win you regular season games. You'll probably get a higher seed due to it. But in the end, what it really comes down to, do you have the depth personnel-wise to really pull it off? Frank Vogel can coach defense, make no mistake about it. But you got to have the personnel to do it, and they don't. And so for me, again, that's why I say I don't know what the hell Perkins talking about.
And they should be a destination for that veteran minimum player who wants to win a championship, who climbs aboard this warm weather climate. Phoenix has always been a place that players have wanted to play. That wasn't the case because of Robert Sarver for a long time in ownership, how he ran the organization.
Right.
So they should be able to be competitive in that veteran minimum market. And they have some of their own guys they can re-sign. It'll be interesting to see how sustainable this is over 2-3 seasons.
Here's what I would say to you, though, Woj. When we look at the big 3, even in Brooklyn, we saw Kyrie, we saw KD, and we saw a guy like James Harden transition into being that point guard. Do we see somebody like that on Phoenix? We do not. We see scorers. Now, Kevin Durant is selfless and will give up the ball in a heartbeat. You understand that. But anybody that's going to transition to the Phoenix Suns has to know, I'm coming there to win, and I'm coming there to play defense because I ain't going to get too many opportunities to shoot damn basketball. Yeah. I got to know that. You better know that from Jump Street.
If DeAndre Ayton didn't think he got enough touches before.
Right. and that's another problem. That is absolutely another problem because this dude's he's got attitude, okay? I mean, listen, Monty, I'm not going to get into the relationship that he had or lack thereof with Monty Williams, but we all know what it was like, okay? And remember, he's a West Indian man. He's from the Bahamas. I would know something about that. You understand? I got an insight. I got insight in the attitude and stubbornness when it comes to folks from the islands. I'm not castigating anybody. I'm just telling you how it is. This dude, half the time Chris Paul was coaching him because he didn't want to listen to his own coach. That is a fact. Off seasons went by and he never even spoke to him. This is the kind of stuff that was going on in Phoenix, and now with these 3 there, I mean, I don't know when he'll see the ball.
So you mentioned Chris Paul. I want to segue to him, and I was literally being told as we were talking that Chris Paul was on Good Morning America today, so we'll hear this together for the first time. This is Chris Paul on GMA, on ABC this morning with his reaction to being traded.
I was surprised, too. I found out on the plane yesterday flying here for this. You know, in this league, anything can happen, so you just figure out what's next.
You literally found out on the plane.
Absolutely.
Wow. What was your first reaction?
Don't push him any further. He's trying to be nice about it.
Yeah, he is. Right?
Yeah.
So there is a fortuitously booked appearance for Chris Paul. I know he has a book out right now with our friend Michael.
He'll be on First Take tomorrow,
Oh, he'll be on First Take tomorrow.
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Well, there's another good plug. So CP3 will get to the bottom of it. Where does this, before I come to Woj on where we should expect him to go, where is he now? This is it's a tough spot for a 38-year-old legend.
Believe it or not, it's not really that tough of a spot.
No.
First of all, to me, I thought the toughest spot was when he got traded to Oklahoma City years ago. And he got him to the postseason.
He did.
We got to give credit where credit is due.
He played great there.
He's a born leader. He's a born leader, and he's a professional, and he adapts to the situation. He understands the business. As a former president of the Players Association, he gets it. He understands. He may not like it sometimes, but he gets it. But in the end, I think when you look at him at the age of 38, I think he wants to keep his money. Obviously, you don't want to lose any money if he can help it. But ultimately, it's about winning. At this point, he's done everything but win a championship. I mean, literally everything. He's, without question, one of the top 6 point guards in the history of basketball. So it's not about anything at this point for him, but positioning himself to win a championship and, in all likelihood, being home, because he was in Phoenix, his family was in LA. He'd fly back to see them. Sometimes they'd fly to see him. I think that LA is a natural landing spot for him.
Talk to me, Woj.
Yeah, so Washington left this trade open-ended to try to find a third team here in the next few days before they close up the deal with the league office. So they'll talk to teams. I think they did last night, today, see if there's anything that makes sense. It's hard to imagine there's a team that's going to pay Chris Paul $30 million to be their point guard. Trying to figure out what that money would look like moving from one team to another with Chris Paul seems more unlikely. And at that point, if he does not want to stay in Washington, doesn't see them as a contender, which I'm sure he won't, then they can talk about a contract buyout, which at that point, I agree with Stephen A. It's LA, it's the Lakers and Clippers. I think the Clippers are in a pretty strong position if Chris Paul becomes a free agent.
And that's where Woj and I part ways. I don't believe in the Clippers for Chris Paul because I believe that, it's almost like this black cat's running around, injuries, and what has plagued Chris Paul? Injuries, okay? And I think that the allure of Lakers, where he should have been years ago, if the de facto owner of the New Orleans squad, Commissioner David Stern, God rest his soul, had it nixed that deal, he would have been in the Lakers uniform. Yeah, it would have been nice to see you playing with Kobe Bryant. That never materialized, but now you have a chance to play with LeBron James, a great friend of yours. Obviously a godfather of your children, that kind of stuff going on. They're very, very close in that regard. And so when you look at it from that perspective, to go back home, to be with family, to have the opportunity to play with LeBron James, I'm not ruling out the Clippers. I'm not trying to say that, Woj. I'm just saying the Lakers are first. It would be the Lakers and then the Clippers.
The Lakers absolutely have interest. If he's a free agent, certainly. There's no shortage of teams who would love Chris Paul on a veteran minimum deal with one of their exceptions. No one's going to have to pay him $30 million. Washington will have to do that to buy him.
And by the way, you let D'Angelo walk out the door for a box of cookies. Okay, let's be very, very clear. I'm not saying he can't play. He can play. But compared to Chris Paul, no. There's nothing to talk about.
Stephen A. was very disappointed in the performance of D'Angelo Russell in that series because it took extra days in Los Angeles.
How about that? I still haven't gotten over it.
D'Angelo Russell has value for the Lakers.
I know he does.
They want to re-sign him. Even sometimes you re-sign a player to be able to trade him down the road. He's an asset. You don't let them walk out the door. They're going to try to get an extension done with him.
In all seriousness, I know you're right, Woj. I'm not trying to say that D'Angelo Russell can't play and he doesn't have interest. I certainly wasn't implying that. I was saying compared to CP3. No, there's nothing to talk about.
Fascinating to watch what winds up happening. I have to let Stephen in 20 minutes till first. I thank you, my man. Great to see you. Outstanding. The conversation continues here, and it leads all the way up to Thursday night. Don't forget, we got the draft in Brooklyn. We got the Spurs. We know what they're going to do at number one, but then the intrigue begins. You got the Hornets. You got Portland. You got Scoot Henderson. You got Brandon Miller. It's all 8 Eastern on ABC and ESPN and ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Coverage begins 7:30 right after Sports Center. Meanwhile, as we continue, what does this trade mean for Kevin Durant? One member of our crew is going to say that you cannot ignore. It's the main thing. We'll dive into that in just a moment, and we'll put Wendy under the spotlight as we do our trivia for today. Title expectations are high, and